Philippine history has shown that stabilizing the price of rice has been crucial for incumbent administrations, particularly during election years. A 2005 study by the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, PIDS, cites as example the failed re-election bids of both President Carlos P. Garcia and President Diosdado Macapagal, which were preceded by rice price hikes and mounting skepticism about their leadership. The agriculture sector, Mr. President, if I may suggest, demands renewed attention. Agricultural productivity has failed to keep pace with increasing demand from a world population that grows by 219,000 a day. 219,000 a day. Let me repeat that, Mr. President. Today, we are 7 billion. We are 7 billion people on this planet. Agriculture has fallen to systematic neglect, or rather to systemic neglect, since the Green Revolution from the 60s to the 70s, when high-yielding varieties of rice and wheat were developed, leading to dramatic increases in output. The Philippines can truly claim authorship of Rice Green Revolution year, Mr. President. Official development assistance to agriculture has been dropping from a high of 17% in 1979 to only about 5.5% in 2007. This has contributed to a sharp increase in global hunger. The FAO says the developing world needs to double food production by 2050. That's 40 years from now, Mr. President, to feed its growing population. Today, our population is 7 billion. By 2050, our population will be 9 billion, Mr. President, and almost 70% of that will live in developing countries. This entails over $200 billion in agricultural investments needed per year. How much are we spending on agriculture, Mr. President? How much is the Philippines or the Filipinos willing to spend for food security? Our combined budget for agriculture and agrarian reform for this year, Mr. President, is 66 billion. That's about, in US dollar term, that's about $1 billion and $1 billion and 100 million, Mr. President. A drop in a huge ocean. We badly need a green revolution that is more efficient and more ecologically sound. In the short term, we must make agriculture a more attractive investment area. This is currently not the case. Banks and financial institutions would rather pay the penalty than comply with the Agri-Agra law, mandating them to set aside 25% of their loanable funds for agriculture. Farmlands should be bankable as collateral so that farmers can gain access to credit needed for farming inputs and expansion. Not only will this give our farmers a stable means of financing, it will also save them from having to resort to usurious lenders. As of now, Mr. President, land and much less agricultural land is outside the financial and banking system. They're not bankable at all. And therefore, finance has been pulled out of the soil and agriculture and food. We should also protect our consumers from profiteers who can aggravate the situation by speculating and hoarding. But over the long term, we must consistently increase investment in agriculture. First, we must provide our farmers with adequate support, such as better infrastructure, good irrigation, and post-harvest network. These are basic to expanding our agricultural productivity. Second, we must modernize agriculture and harness innovations in technology to improve production. Remote sensing, Mr. President, and satellite imagery, for instance, can help our farmers maximize the use of agricultural inputs such as water, fertilizers, and seeds. Third, investment in agriculture must emphasize research and development, Mr. President. This is so commonsensical and almost elementary. Research and development in agriculture yields the highest return among all, especially in more efficient breeding and farming practices. Agricultural R&D investments in developing countries have an average rate of return of 43% and can provide solutions to food supply shortages posed by climate change, farmland conversion, and a growing population. Lastly, we must ensure that our agricultural development does not exacerbate climate change. We must effectively produce food and energy simultaneously. It's a neither-or proposition by using multi-cropping systems, agro-industrial technology, and renewable energy. The coming food crisis, like the one that gripped the world in 2008, could be mere snippets of global food insecurity in the next 30, 40 years, unless we take decisive action on agriculture and environment now. According to the World Bank, some 44 million people in developing countries have been thrust into extreme poverty by soaring food prices since last June, in less than a year, Mr. President. 44 million people, almost half of the population of the Philippines, have been thrust back to extreme poverty. People are eating less and subsisting on lower priced but less nutritious foods. Whatever gains we have achieved in reducing poverty, hunger, and malnutrition are in danger of being wiped out and reversed. Let us not wait for Filipinos to take to the streets before we do something. Let us not wait to be hit by more natural disasters before we act. The food crisis is real. It is upon us. Mr. President, complacency is not an option. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Angara. Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized.
Some more.
Mr. President, I was tempted to call for the Sergeant at Arms, but never mind. When I saw that they were fans of Senator Angara, I really don't mind.
Mr.
May we
President.
recognize Senator Pia Cayetano, Mr. President?
Senator